in the history books for such a long time, it was called a massacre. And the reason it was called a massacre is because the people who wrote the history books lost. And it was, but at the forefront of what this day signifies is not just a battle, not just a fight, not just guns going off, but it was a political action that really symbolized the first idea of a Métis nation. So nationhood was something that came out of this battle. Now, it was called as I said, the Massacre of Seven Oaks. It was later changed to the Battle of Seven Oaks. However, we called it, the Métis people called it La Victoire de la Grenouillière, which means the victory at Frog Plain. And it was, again, as I said, the first time that we went into battle as a people. And it was the first time that we won in battle as a people. It was very decisive. There was all sorts of factors going into why it occurred. There was economics, there was, again, Métis nationalism, there was religious issues such as Protestants versus Catholics. But at the end of the day, the leader of the Métis people at the time, Cuthbert Grant Jr., declared La Nouvelle Nation, the new nation. And it was and he flew the flag for the first time, not just in this battle, but in the years around this battle as well. And it became a rallying point for a people to have a consciousness. And that consciousness really came to the forefront after this battle. And it's something that I think is very important for us to recognize every year. We recognize Louis Riel, which is very, very important to do. But I think we need to recognize the folks who helped start the idea of the Métis Nation as well. So we're here today at St. Francis Xavier, and a very important place. This was a town that Cuthbert Grant founded. It was called Grant Town. The name was later changed to St. Francis Xavier. There's been some dispute over why, but I just had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she pointed out to me that St. Francis Xavier was the patron saint of the Grant family, and it was the family's wish that the name be changed. But the significance of this spot in particular is that Mr. Grant was buried here. Now, there are some disputes because it's lost in history about exactly where and how it happened. But the understanding that I have is that he was buried under the altar in the church that was first built here, and from my understanding it was just over here in front of the church that we have here now. There was a fire. The church burnt down and the altar burnt down, and any remains that would have been there from Cuthbert Grant was lost. One of the things that my friend told me, and I think it is a very beautiful symbolic idea, is that although we have a marker here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, because it's very important that the descendants of Cuthbert Grant wanted to honor him, but the people who live in the community, the people who lived in the community and still live here, see the entire church as being a memorial to Cuthbert Grant. So that the church is actually now the marker for where he lies, and they see him as being an important part of their community, building their community, but also he's an important part in the religious followers, the people who worship here. Cuthbert Grant was a very ardent Catholic, and he leaves behind this legacy, and the people here are very proud that he's here, and that his spirit is going on in the church behind us. Can we look at the battle and see how it reflects on us today? I think the very easy answer is that the Métis don't back down. whether it's, it was 20, 30 years later at the Sayre trial, whether it was, another 30 years later at the Red River Resistance, or 15 years later at the Batoche Resistance. Or sometimes we find ourselves at odds with provincial leadership, but it's not that we will back off. If our political leadership, and backed 100% by our citizens, feel that it's necessary to stand up for the rights of our people, that's what we're going to do. And I think that's very evident in how the Métis government is handling itself today. We'll work together with those who want to work with us, and we will help those who don't want to work with us see why it's important to bring the Métis people in as partners.